Confucius said, "Chu, there are the words of Zhou Run. When he can put forth his ability, he takes his place in the ranks of office. When he finds himself unable to do so, he retires from it. How can he be used as a guide to a blind man who does not support him when tottering, nor raise him up when fallen? And further, you speak wrongly. When a tiger or rhinoceros escapes from his cage, when a tortoise or piece of jade is injured in its repository, whose is the fault?" Ran Yu said, "But at present, Juan Yu is strong and near to be. If our chief do not now take it, it will therefore be a sorrow to his descendants." Confucius said, "Chu, the superior man hates that declining to say, 'I want such and such a thing,' and framing explanations for the conduct. I have heard that rulers of states and chiefs of families are not troubled lest their people should be few, but are troubled lest they should not keep their several places, that they are not troubled with fears of poverty, but are troubled with fears of a want of contented repose among the people in their several places. For when the people keep their several places, there will be no poverty. When harmony prevails, there will be no scarcity of people, and when there is such a contented repose, there will be no rebellious upset. So it is. Therefore, if remoter people are not submissive, all the influences of civil culture and virtue are to be cultivated to attract them to be so. And when they have been so attracted, they must be made contented and tranquil. Now, here are you and Chu, assisting your chief. Remoter people are not submissive, and with your help he cannot attract them to him. In his own territory there are divisions and downfalls, leavings and separations, and with your help he cannot preserve it. And yet he is planning these hostile movements within the state. I am afraid that the sorrow of the Ji Sun family will not be on account of Juan Yu, but will be found within the screen of their own court." 2. Confucius said, "When good government prevails in the empire, ceremonies, music, and punitive military expeditions proceed from the Son of Heaven. When bad government prevails in the empire, ceremonies, music, and punitive military expeditions proceed from the princes. When these things proceed from the princes, as a rule, the cases will be few in which they do not lose their power in 10 generations. When they proceed from the great offices of the princes, as a rule, the cases will be few in which they do not lose their power in 5 generations. When the subsidiary ministers of the great offices hold in their grasp the orders of the state, as a rule, the cases will be few in which they do not lose their power in 3 generations. When right principles prevail in the kingdom, government will not be in the hands of the great officers. When right principles prevail in the kingdom, there will be no discussions among the common people." 3. Confucius said, "The revenue of the state has left the ducal house now for 5 generations. The government has been in the hands of the great officers for 4 generations. On this account, the descendants of the 3 Huan are much reduced." 4. Confucius said, "There are 3 friendships which are advantageous, and 3 which are injurious. Friendship with the upright, friendship with the sincere, and friendship with the man of much observation, these are advantageous. Friendship with the man of specious airs, friendship with the insinuatingly soft, and friendship with the glib-tongued, these are injurious." 5. Confucius said, "There are 3 things men find enjoyment in which are advantageous, and 3 things they find enjoyment in which are injurious. To find enjoyment in the discriminating study of ceremonies and music, to find enjoyment in speaking of the goodness of others, to find enjoyment in having many worthy friends, these are advantageous. To find enjoyment in extravagant pleasures, to find enjoyment in idleness and sauntering, to find enjoyment in the pleasures of feasting, these are injurious. 6. Confucius said, "There are 3 errors to which they who stand in the presence of a man of virtue and station are liable. They may speak when it does not come to them to speak. This is called rashness. They may not speak when it comes to them to speak. This is called concealment. They may speak without looking at the countenance of their superior. This is called blindness." 7. Confucius said, "There are 3 things which the superior man guards against. In youth, when the physical powers are not yet settled, he guards against lust. When he is strong and the physical powers are full of vigor, he guards against quarrelsomeness. When he is old and the animal powers are decayed, he guards against covetousness." 8. Confucius said, "There are 3 things of which the superior man stands in awe. He stands in awe of the ordinances of heaven. He stands in awe of great men. He stands in awe of the words of sages. The mean man does not know the ordinances of heaven, and consequently does not stand in awe of them. He is disrespectful to great men. He makes sport of the words of sages." 9. Confucius said, "Those who are born with the possession of knowledge are the highest class of men. Those who learn and so readily get possession of knowledge are the next. Those who are dull and stupid and yet compass the learning are another class next to these. As to those who are dull and stupid and yet do not learn, they are the lowest of the people." 10. Confucius said, "The superior man has 9 things which are subjects with him of thoughtful consideration. In regard to the use of his eyes, he is anxious to see clearly. In regard to the use of his ears, he is anxious to hear distinctly. In regard to his countenance, he is anxious that it should be benign. In regard to his demeanour, he is anxious that it should be respectful. In regard to his speech, he is anxious that it should be sincere. In regard to his doing of business, he is anxious that it should be reverently careful. In regard to what he doubts about, he is anxious to question others. When he is angry, he thinks of the difficulties his anger may involve him in. When he sees gain to be got, he thinks of righteousness." 11. Confucius said, "Contemplating good and pursuing it as if they could not reach it, contemplating evil and shrinking from it as they would from thrusting the hand into boiling water, I have seen such men as I have heard such words. Living in retirement to study their aims and practicing righteousness to carry out their principles, I have heard these words, but I have not seen such men." 12. The Duke Jing of Qi had 1,000 teams, each of 4 horses, but on the day of his death the people did not praise him for a single virtue. Bo Yi and Shu Qi died of hunger at the foot of the Shouyang mountain, and the people, down to the present time, praise them. Is not that saying illustrated by this? 13. Chen Kang and Bo Yu, saying, "Have you heard any lessons from your father different from what we have all heard?" Bo Yu replied, "No. He was standing alone once, when I passed below the hall with hasty steps, and said to me, 'Have you learned the odes?' On my replying, 'Not yet,' he added, 'If you do not learn the odes, you will not be fit to converse with.' I retired and studied the odes. Another day, he was in the same way standing alone when I passed by below the hall with hasty steps, and said to me, 'Have you learned the rules of propriety?' On my replying, 'Not yet,' he added, 'If you do not learn the rules of propriety, your character cannot be established.' I then retired and learned the rules of propriety. I have heard only these two things from him." Chen Kang retired and, quite delighted, said, "I asked one thing and I have got three things. I have heard about the odes, I have heard about the rules of propriety, I have also heard that the superior man maintains a distant reserve towards his son." 14. The wife of the prince of a state is called by him a lady. She calls herself little boy. The people of the state call her the Lady of the Lord, and to the people of other states they call her the Little Lord. The people of other states also call her the Lady of the Lord. Book 17. 1. Young He wished to see Confucius, but Confucius would not go to see him. On this he sent a present of a pig to Confucius, who, having chosen a time when He was not at home, went to pay his respects for the gift. He met him, however, on the way. He said to Confucius, "Come, let me speak with you." He then asked, "Can he be called benevolent who keeps his jewel in his bosom and leaves his country to confusion?" Confucius replied, "No. Can he be called wise who is anxious to be engaged in public employment and yet is constantly losing the opportunity of being so?" Confucius again said, "No. The days and months are passing away, the years do not wait for us." Confucius said, "Right, I will go into office." 2. The master said, "By nature men are nearly alike. By practice they get to be wide apart." 3. The master said, "There are only the wise of the highest class and the stupid of the lowest class, who cannot be changed." 4. The master, having come to Wu Cheng, heard there the sound of stringed instruments and singing. Well pleased and smiling, he said, "Why use an ox knife to kill a fowl?" Zhe Yu replied, "Formerly, master, I heard you say, 'When the man of high station is well instructed, he loves men. When the man of low station is well instructed, he is easily ruled.'" The master said, "My disciples, Yan's words are right. What I said was only in sport." 5. Gong Shan Fu Rao, when he was holding Bi and in an attitude of rebellion, invited the master to visit him, who was rather inclined to go. Zhe Lu was displeased and said, "Indeed, you cannot go. Why must you think of going to see Gong Shan?" The master said, "Can it be without some reason that he has invited me? If anyone employs me, may I not make an Eastern Joe?" 6. Zhe Zhang asked Confucius about perfect virtue. Confucius said, "To be able to practice 5 things everywhere under heaven constitutes perfect virtue." He begged to ask what they were and was told, gravity, generosity of soul, sincerity, earnestness, and kindness. If you are grave, you will not be treated with disrespect. If you are generous, you will win all. If you are sincere, people will repose trust in you. If you are earnest, you will accomplish much. If you are kind, this will enable you to employ the services of others. 7. Bi Shi inviting him to visit him, the master was inclined to go. Zhe Lu said, Master, formerly I have heard you say, when a man in his own person is guilty of doing evil, a superior man will not associate with him. Bi Shi is in rebellion, holding possession of Zhong Mo. If you go to him, what shall be said? The master said, Yes, I did use these words. But is it not said that if a thing be really hard, it may be ground without being made thin? Is it not said that if a thing be really white, it may be steeped in a dark fluid without being made black? Am I a bitter gourd? How can I be hung up out of the way of being eaten? 8. The master said, Have you heard the 6 qualities to which are attached 6 failings? Yu replied, I have not. Sit down and I will tell them to you. There is the love of being benevolent without the love of learning. The failing here leads to a foolish simplicity. There is the love of knowing without the love of learning. The failing here leads to dissipation of mind. There is the love of being sincere without the love of learning. The failing here leads to an injurious disregard of consequences. There is the love of straightforwardness without the love of learning. The failing here leads to rudeness. There is the love of boldness without the love of learning. The failing here leads to insubordination. There is the love of firmness without the love of learning. The failing here leads to extravagant conduct. 9. The master said, My children, why do you not study the book of poetry? The odes serve to stimulate the mind. They may be used for purposes of self-contemplation. They teach the art of sociability. They show how to regulate feelings of resentment. From them you learn the more immediate duty of serving one's father and the remoter one of serving one's prince. From them we become largely acquainted with the names of birds, beasts, and plants. 10. The master said to Bo Yu, Have you studied the Zhou Nan and Shou Nan? The man who has not studied them is like one who stands with his face right towards a wall. Is he not so? 11. The master said, It is according to the rules of propriety, they say. It is according to the rules of propriety, they say. Are gems and silk all that is meant by propriety? It is music, they say. It is music, they say. Are bells and drums all that is meant by music? 12. The master said, He who puts on an appearance of stern firmness while inwardly he is weak is like one of the small, mean people. Yea, is he not like the thief who breaks through or climbs over a wall? 13. The master said, Your good, careful people of the villages are the thieves of virtue. 14. The master said, To tell as we go along what we have heard on the way is to cast away our virtue. 15. The master said, There are those mean creatures, how impossible it is along with them to serve one's prince. While they have not got their aims, their anxiety is how to get them. When they have got them, their anxiety is lest they should lose them. When they are anxious lest such things should be lost, there is nothing to which they will not proceed. 16. The Master said, "In ancient times men had 3 failings which now perhaps are not to be found. The high-mindedness of antiquity showed itself in a disregard of small things. The high-mindedness of the present day shows itself in wild license. The stern dignity of antiquity showed itself in grave reserve. The stern dignity of the present day shows itself in quarrelsome perverseness. The stupidity of antiquity showed itself in straightforwardness. The stupidity of the present day shows itself in sheer deceit." 17. The Master said, "Fine words and an insinuating appearance are seldom associated with virtue." 18. The Master said, "I hate the manner in which purple takes away the lustre of vermilion. I hate the way in which the songs of Jung corrupts classical music. I hate those who with their sharp mouths overthrow kingdoms and families." 19. The Master said, "I would prefer not speaking." Gong said, "If you, Master, do not speak, what shall we, your disciples, have to record?" The Master said, "Does heaven speak? The 4 seasons pursue their courses, and all things are continually being produced, but does heaven say anything?" 20. Ru Bei wished to see Confucius, but Confucius declined on the ground of being sick to see him. When the bearer of this message went out at the door, the Master took his lute and sang to it, in order that Bei might hear him. 21. Zai Wo asked about the 3 years' mourning for parents, saying that 1 year was long enough. "If the superior man," said he, "abstains for 3 years from the observances of propriety, those observances will be quite lost. If for 3 years he abstains from music, music will be ruined. Within a year the old grain is exhausted and the new grain has sprung up, and in procuring fire by friction we go through all the changes of wood for that purpose. After a complete year, the mourning may stop." The Master said, "If you were, after a year, to eat good rice and wear embroidered clothes, would you feel at ease?" "I should," replied Wu. The Master said, "If you can feel at ease, do it. But a superior man, during the whole period of mourning, does not enjoy pleasant food which he may eat, nor derive pleasure from music which he may hear. He also does not feel at ease if he is comfortably lodged. Therefore he does not do what you propose, but now you feel at ease and may do it." Zai Wo then went out, and the Master said, "This shows Yu's want of virtue. It is not till a child is 3 years old that it is allowed to leave the arms of its parents. And the 3 years' mourning is universally observed throughout the empire. Did you enjoy the 3 years' love of his parents?" 22. The Master said, "Hard is it to deal with him who will stuff himself with food the whole day without applying his mind to anything good. Are there not gamesters and chess players? To be one of these would still be better than doing nothing at all." 23. Lu said, "Does the superior man esteem valour?" The Master said, "The superior man holds righteousness to be of highest importance." A man in a superior situation, having valour without righteousness, will be guilty of insubordination. One of the lower people having valour without righteousness will commit robbery. 24. Zhe Gong said, "Has the superior man his hatreds also?" The master said, "He has his hatreds. He hates those who proclaim the evil of others. He hates the man who, being in a low station, slanders his superiors. He hates those who have valour merely and are unobservant of propriety. He hates those who are forward and determined and at the same time of contracted understanding." The master then inquired, "Zhe, have you also your hatreds?" Zhe Gong replied, "I hate those who pry out matters and ascribe the knowledge to their wisdom. I hate those who are only not modest and think that they are courageous. I hate those who make known secrets and think that they are straightforward." 25. The master said, "Of all people, girls and servants are the most difficult to behave to. If you are familiar with them, they lose their humility. If you maintain a reserve towards them, they are discontented." 26. The master said, "When a man at 40 is the object of dislike, he will always continue what he is." Book 18. 1. The Viscount of Wei withdrew from the court. The Viscount of Ji became a slave to Zhou. Bi Gan remonstrated with him and died. Confucius said, "The Yin dynasty possessed these 3 men of virtue." 2. Hui of Liu Xia, being chief criminal judge, was thrice dismissed from his office. Someone said to him, "Is it not yet time for you, sir, to leave this?" He replied, "Serving men in an upright way, where shall I go to, and not experience such a thrice-repeated dismissal? If I choose to serve men in a crooked way, what necessity is there for me to leave the country of my parents?" 3. The Duke Jing of Qi, with reference to the manner in which he should treat Confucius, said, "I cannot treat him as I would the chief of the Ji family. I will treat him in a manner between that accorded to the chief of the Ji and that given to the chief of the Meng family." He also said, "I am old. I cannot use his doctrines." Confucius took his departure. 4. The people of Qi sent to Lu a present of female musicians, which Ji Huan received, and for 3 days no court was held. Confucius took his departure. 5. The madman of Chu, Jie Yu, passed by Confucius singing and saying, O Phoenix, how is your virtue degenerated? As to the past, reproof is useless, but the future may still be there. Give up your vain pursuit. Give up your vain pursuit. Peril awaits those who now engage in affairs of government." Confucius alighted and wished to converse with him, but Jie Yu hastened away so that he could not talk with him. 6. Cheng Ju and Jie Ni were at work in the field together when Confucius passed by them and sent Tze Lu to inquire about the ford. Cheng Ju said, "Who is he that holds the reins in the carriage there?" Tze Lu told him, "It is Kong Qiu." "Is it not Kong Qiu of Lu?" asked he. "Yes," was the reply, to which the other said, "Well, he knows the ford." Tze Lu then inquired of Jie Ni, who said to him, "Who are you, sir?" He answered, I am Zhong Yu. Are you not the disciple of Kong Qiu of Liu? Asked the other. I am, replied he, and then Jie Ni said to him, Disorder, like a swelling flood, spreads over the whole empire, and who is he that will change its state for you than follow one who merely withdraws from this one and that one? Had you not better follow those who have withdrawn from the world altogether? With this he fell to covering up the seed, and proceeded with his work without stopping. Tze Lu went and reported their remarks, when the master observed with a sigh, It is impossible to associate with birds and beasts, as if they were the same with us. If I associate not with these people, with mankind, with whom shall I associate? If right principles prevailed through the empire, there would be no use for me to change its state. 7. Tze Lu, following the master, happened to fall behind when he met an old man carrying across his shoulder on a staff a basket for weeds. Tze Lu said to him, Have you seen my master, sir? The old man replied, Your 4 limbs are unaccustomed to toil. You cannot distinguish the 5 kinds of grain. Who is your master? With this, he planted his staff in the ground and proceeded to weed. Tze Lu joined his hands across his breast and stood before him. The old man kept Tze Lu to pass the night in his house, killed a fowl, prepared millet, and feasted him. He also introduced to him his 2 sons. Next day, Tze Lu went on his way and reported his adventure. The master said, He is a recluse, and sent Tze Lu back to see him again, but when he got to the place, the old man was gone. Tze Lu then said to the family, Not to take office is not righteous. If the relations between old and young may not be neglected, how is it that he sets aside the duties that should be observed between sovereign and minister? Wishing to maintain his personal purity, he allows that great relation to come to confusion. A superior man takes office and performs the righteous duties belonging to it. As to the failure of right principles to make progress, he is aware of that. 8. The men who have retired to privacy from the world have been Bo Yi, Shu Qi, Yu Zhong, Yi Yi, Zhu Zhang, Hui of Liu Xia, and Xiao Lian. The master said, Refusing to surrender their wills or to submit to any taint in their persons, such, I think, were Bo Yi and Shu Qi. It may be said of Hui of Liu Xia and of Xiao Lian that they surrendered their wills and submitted to taint in their persons, but their words corresponded with reason, and their actions were such as men are anxious to see. This is all that is to be remarked in them. It may be said of Yu Zhong and Yi Yi that while they hid themselves in their seclusion, they gave a license to their words, but in their persons they succeeded in preserving their purity, and in their retirement they acted according to the exigency of the times. I am different from all these. I have no course for which I am predetermined, and no course against which I am predetermined. 9. The grand music master Zhi went to Qi. Gan, the master of the band at the second meal, went to Chu. Liao, the band master at the third meal, went to Zai. Chue, the band master at the fourth meal, went to Qin. Feng Shu, the drum master, withdrew to the north of the river. Wu, the master of the hand drum, withdrew to the Han. Yang, the assistant music master, and Xiang, master of the musical stone, withdrew to an island in the sea. 10. The Duke of Zhou addressed his son, the Duke of Liu, saying, The virtuous prince does not neglect his relations. He does not cause the great ministers to repine at his not employing them. Without some great cause, he does not dismiss from their offices the members of old families. He does not seek in one man talents for every employment. 11. To Zhou belonged the 8 officers, Bo Da, Bo Kuo, Zhong Tu, Zhong Hu, Xu Ye, Xu Xia, Qi Sui, and Qi Kuo. Book 19. Zhe Zhang said, "The scholar, trained for public duty, seeing threatening danger, is prepared to sacrifice his life. When the opportunity of gain is presented to him, he thinks of righteousness. In sacrificing, his thoughts are reverential. In mourning, his thoughts are about the grief which he should feel. Such a man commands our approbation indeed." 2. Zhe Zhang said, "When a man holds fast to virtue, but without seeking to enlarge it, and believes right principles but without firm sincerity, what account can be made of his existence or non-existence?" 3. The disciples of Zhe Xia asked Zhe Zhang about the principles that should characterize mutual intercourse. Zhe Zhang asked, "What does Zhe Xia say on the subject?" They replied, "Zhe Xia says, associate with those who can advantage you. Put away from you those who cannot do so." Zhe Zhang observed, "This is different from what I have learned. The superior man honors the talented and virtuous and bears with all. He praises the good and pities the incompetent. Am I possessed of great talents and virtue? Who is there among men whom I will not bear with? Am I devoid of talents and virtue? Men will put me away from them. What have we to do with the putting away of others?" 4. Zhe Xia said, "Even in inferior studies and employments there is something worth being looked at. But if it be attempted to carry them out to what is remote, there is a danger of their proving inapplicable. Therefore, the superior man does not practice them." 5. Zhe Xia said, "He who from day to day recognizes what he has not yet, and from month to month does not forget what he has attained to, may be said indeed to love to learn." 6. Zhe Xia said, "There are learning extensively and having a firm and sincere aim, inquiring with earnestness and reflecting with self-application. Virtue is in such a course." 7. Zhe Xia said, "Mechanics have their shops to dwell in order to accomplish their works. The superior man learns in order to reach to the utmost of his principles." 8. Zhe Xia said, "The mean man is sure to gloss his faults." 9. Zhe Xia said, "The superior man undergoes 3 changes. Looked at from a distance, he appears stern. When approached, he is mild. When he is heard to speak, his language is firm and decided." 10. Zhe Xia said, "The superior man, having obtained their confidence, may then impose labours on his people. If he have not gained their confidence, they will think he is oppressing them. Having obtained the confidence of his prince, one may then remonstrate with him. If he have not gained his confidence, the prince will think that he is vilifying him." 11. Zhe Xia said, "When a person does not transgress the boundary line in the great virtues, he may pass and repass it in the small virtues." 12. Zhe Yu said, The disciples and followers of Zhe Xia, in sprinkling and sweeping the ground, in answering and replying, in advancing and receding, are sufficiently accomplished. But these are only the branches of learning, and they are left ignorant of what is essential. How can they be acknowledged as sufficiently taught? Zhe Xia heard of the remark and said, "Alas, Yen Yu is wrong. According to the way of the superior man in teaching, what departments are there which he considers of prime importance and delivers? What are there which he considers of secondary importance and allows himself to be idle about? But as in the case of plants, which are assorted according to their classes, so he deals with his disciples. How can the way of a superior man be such as to make fools of any of them? Is it not the sage alone who can unite in one the beginning and the consummation of learning?" 13. Zhe Xia said, "The officer, having discharged all his duties, should devote his leisure to learning. The student, having completed his learning, should apply himself to be an officer." 14. Zhe Xia said, "Mourning, having been carried to the utmost degree of grief, should stop with that." 15. Zhe Xia said, "My friend Zhang can do things which are hard to be done, but yet he is not perfectly virtuous." 16. The philosopher Zheng said, "How imposing is the manner of Zhang! It is difficult along with him to practice virtue." 17. The philosopher Zheng said, "I heard this from our master. Men may not have shown what is in them to the full extent, and yet they will be found to do so on occasion of mourning for their parents." 18. The philosopher Zheng said, "I have heard this from our master. The filial piety of Meng Zhuang in other matters was what other men are competent to, but as seen in his not changing the ministers of his father, nor his father's mode of government, it is difficult to be attained to." 19. The chief of the Meng family having appointed young Fu to be chief criminal judge, the latter consulted the philosopher Zheng. Zheng said, "The rulers have failed in their duties, and the people consequently have been disorganized for a long time. When you have found out the truth of any accusation, be grieved for and pity them, and do not feel joy at your own ability." 20. Zhe Gong said, "Zhou's wickedness was not so great as that name implies. Therefore the superior man hates to dwell in a low-lying situation where all the evil of the world will flow in upon him." 21. Zhe Gong said, "The faults of the superior man are like the eclipses of the sun and moon. He has his faults, and all men see them. He changes again, and all men look up to him." 22. Gongsun Chao of Wei asked Zhe Gong, saying, "From whom did Zhong Ni get his learning?" Zhe Gong replied, "The doctrines of Wan and Wu have not yet fallen to the ground. They are to be found among men. Men of talents and virtue remember the greater principles of them, and others not possessing such talents and virtue remember the smaller. Thus all possess the doctrines of Wan and Wu. Where could our master go that he should not have an opportunity of learning them? And yet what necessity was there for his having a regular master?" 23. Shu Sun Wushu observed to the great officers in the court, saying, "Zhe Gong is superior to Zhong Ni." Zhe Fu Jingbo reported the observation to Zhe Gong, who said, "Let me use the comparison of a house and its encompassing wall. My wall only reaches to the shoulders. One may peep over it and see whatever is valuable in the apartments. The wall of my master is several fathoms high. If one do not find the door and enter by it, he cannot see the ancestral temple with its beauties, nor all the offices in their rich array. But I may assume that they are few who find the door. Was not the observation of the chief only what might have been expected? 24. Shu Sun Wu Shu, having spoken badly of Zhong Ni, Zhe Gong said, "It is of no use doing so. Zhong Ni cannot be reviled. The talents and virtue of other men are hillocks and mounds which may be stepped over. Zhong Ni is the sun or moon which it is not possible to step over. Although a man may wish to cut himself off from the sage, what harm can he do to the sun or moon? He only knows that he does not know his own capacity." 25. Chen Tze-chin, addressing Zhe Gong, said, "You are too modest. How can Zhong Ni be said to be superior to you?" Zhe Gong said to him, "For one word a man is often deemed to be wise, and for one word he is often deemed to be foolish. We ought to be careful indeed in what we say. Our master cannot be attained to just in the same way as the heavens cannot be gone up to by the steps of a stair. Were our master in the position of the ruler of a state or the chief of a family, we should find verified the description which has been given of a sage's rule. He would plant the people, and forthwith they would be established. He would lead them on, and forthwith they would follow him. He would make them happy, and forthwith multitudes would resort to his dominions. He would stimulate them, and forthwith they would be harmonious. While he lived, he would be glorious. When he died, he would be bitterly lamented. How is it possible for him to be attained to?" Book 20. 1. Yao said, "Oh, you, Shun, the heaven-determined order of succession now rests in your person. Sincerely hold fast the middle way. If there shall be distress and want within the 4 seas, the heavenly revenue will come to a perpetual end." Shun also used the same language in giving charge to Yu. Tang said, "I, the child Liu, presume to use a dark-coloured victim and presume to announce to thee, O most great and sovereign God, that the sinner I dare not pardon, and thy ministers, O God, I do not keep in obscurity. The examination of them is by thy mind, O God. If in my person I commit offences, they are not to be attributed to you, the people of the myriad regions. If you in the myriad regions commit offences, these offences must rest on my person. Zhou conferred great gifts, and the good were enriched. Although he has his near relatives, they are not equal to my virtuous men. The people are throwing blame upon me, the one man." He carefully attended to the weights and measures, examined the body of the laws, restored the discarded officers, and the good government of the kingdom took its course. He revived states that had been extinguished, restored families whose line of succession had been broken, and called to office those who had retired into obscurity, so that throughout the kingdom the hearts of the people turned towards him. What he attached chief importance to were the food of the people, the duties of mourning, and sacrifices. By his generosity he won all. By his sincerity he made the people repose trust in him. By his earnest activity his achievements were great. By his justice all were delighted. Zhe asked Confucius, saying, "In what way should a person in authority act in order that he may conduct government properly?" The master replied, let him honour the 5 excellent and banish away the 4 bad things. Then may he conduct government properly. Zhejiang said, "What are meant by the 5 excellent things?" The master said, "When the person in authority is beneficent without great expenditure, when he lays tasks on the people without their repining, when he pursues what he desires without being covetous, when he maintains a dignified ease without being proud, when he is majestic without being fierce." 2. Zhejiang said, "What is meant by being beneficent without great expenditure?" The master replied, "When the person in authority makes more beneficial to the people the things from which they naturally derive benefit, is not this being beneficent without great expenditure? When he chooses the labours which are proper and makes them labour on them, who will repine? When his desires are set on benevolent government and he secures it, who will accuse him of covetousness? Whether he has to do with many people or few, or with things great or small, he does not dare to indicate any disrespect. Is not this to maintain a dignified ease without any pride? He adjusts his clothes and cap and throws a dignity into his looks, so that, thus dignified, he is looked at with awe. Is not this to be majestic without being fierce?" Zhejiang then asked, "What are meant by the 4 bad things?" The master said, "To put the people to death without having instructed them, this is called cruelty. To require from them suddenly the full tale of work without having given them warning, this is called oppression. To issue orders as if without urgency at first, and when the time comes to insist on them with severity, this is called injury. And generally, in the giving pay or rewards to men, to do it in a stingy way, this is called acting the part of a mere official." 3. The master said, "Without recognizing the ordinances of heaven, it is impossible to be a superior man. Without an acquaintance with the rules of propriety, it is impossible for the character to be established. Without knowing the force of words, it is impossible to know men."